Hey folks, John Cantera, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter here, and welcome to Stop the Scam. We've got a great show for you today. We've got a couple of guests who may very well have that silver bullet available that can actually help eliminate my job as a Double Broker Bounty Hunter. At least it's the closest thing that I've seen that might actually do it. So let's go ahead and get this party started.
Welcome to the Double Broker Bounty Hunters Stop the Scam. Here are your hosts, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, John Cantera, and Dispatch Kate, Caitlin Price.
It's always good to start the day with a little bit of Queen. Speaking of Queens, Kate, how you doing, darling?
Oh, thanks. I'm all right. It's Monday. I'm off all week, so.
Well, you're not off Thursday and Friday.
Good.
Yeah, you're covering for me.
Good.
For those of you who don't know, this week is MATS, the Mid-America Truck Show in Louisville. So I am getting on a plane Wednesday afternoon. I am landing in Louisville just after midnight. And maybe I'll get a couple hours of sleep before I've got to go to the what do you call this? But convention center and get ready for the show. I'm going to be there with the Lounge Media Group's media team, and we're going to be doing a lot of content out there. I know we've got several live events that are scheduled during the time there. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we'll be doing a lot of live stuff. Kate is going to be covering for me from the dispatch side, and also she's going to be doing editing for all the content that we're recording while we're over there at MATS this week. So if you're looking for me over at MATS, I will be wearing the AccuBid hat. So you can find me there. I will also be camped out at the table for, oh gosh, what group was that again? Ninja something or other. God, I can't remember who the heck they were. Well, oh, I can't believe I'm blanking like this. Anyway, Freight Ninja. There we go. Freight Ninja. We'll be hanging out at the Freight Ninja booth. The Logistics Lounge is going to be there. You're probably going to have Dale Prax. Freight Validate is probably also going to be there. We will have our sponsor, Jimmy, is going to be there with AccuBid. So come check us out. We definitely would love to have you. In the meantime, Kate is going to be busy doing all the editing work. So thank you, Kate. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'll help you when I get back, of course. You know that. So Kate finishes setting up. Let's go ahead and get a word from our sponsor. If you are fairly new to this industry, the most important thing you need to know is your cost per mile. Best way to track that is with AccuBid Pro.
Do you know your cost per mile? Have you been hitting your profit margins? Do you struggle with bidding in a way that is both profitable and competitive? Would it be worth it to have all this information right in front of you? By calculating your cost per mile, AccuBid Pro helps you stay profitable in an industry still struggling to recover. In order to calculate your cost per mile, AccuBid Pro asks you questions about your business expenses. Our goal is to help you understand what you need to keep operating in order to keep up with the game and maintain your business. Enter your origin and destination, and we show you what you should bid based on your personal cost per mile in order to be profitable, even including a more detailed breakdown of each bid. Download the app today and get your 30-day free trial of AccuBid Pro, available on the App Store and Google Play. Bid smarter, bid faster, bid better with AccuBid Pro.
Okay, folks, it gives me a great pleasure to introduce our guests from a group called On Site. And let's go ahead and get into that so you kind of understand exactly what we mean by the wonderful fun they have described. We have the co-founders, Alex, Snook, and Errick. I'm going to butcher this. Quartucci.
You did good.
Got it.
Okay. Oh, okay. You know, I try to fall back on my Italian heritage on these things. Sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. But Alex, Errick, thank you so much for coming. Really do appreciate it. Now, we've had a couple of discussions in the past about what you guys do, but I'm so excited about the promise of your upcoming platform that I had to bring you out here. So, who are you guys? What is it that you do? And what in God's name is on site?
Yeah, no, appreciate you having us on, John. So a little bit of my background, I've been in logistics and freight for about a decade or so. Got my start early on at a bigger box brokerage, so to speak. That's where me and Errick actually connected. And then I shifted over to a couple different smaller brokerages. That's kind of where I got my footing in the industry. And then over the last couple of years, I started a trucking company as well that I co-own. And then through a fun scenario of some stolen electronics for one of our customers, me and Errick here, we were like, this really sucks. So kind of the play on words with the name spelled with, GHT is kind of building a platform where it's bridging a bunch of the connections between shipper, carrier, brokers, and receivers, basically anyone who's involved. To start, it's probably going to be centered around full truckload. But that's essentially what it is. It's a play on the words that we don't have much visibility. A lot of us that work behind computer screens who aren't, physically loading the freight or aren't there at the deliveries. We're not really physically working with the carriers. So kind of bringing more color to, black and white, sometimes gray area industry, and really getting eyes on the ground floor. So that's in essence, kind of where it started, was out of a crappy situation where we had a stolen load. And so that's what it is in a nutshell. So that was fun.
Well, it's amazing how the mother of necessity. What the hell's that phrase go? Man, it is Monday for me. What the hell is wrong with me?
It is a Monday.
I mean, the issue is there's a need out there, and you guys have experienced one of the worst experiences most brokers go through, a cargo getting stolen. And your solution to this is unbelievable. So tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, Errick, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Just give you a quick introduction to myself. Like Alex said, we met at a large brokerage working together. After he left the company, I stayed there with it and grew out not only just general logistics knowledge, but also moving more into like the data space, doing price and analysis and things related to that. And when I teamed up with Alex a little bit later, we experienced that loss. And outside of that, it's really, we're trying to fill the holes that we see existing in the market. There's a lot of different things we think ought to be happening that aren't really taking place, and we're doing our best to work with our team, our founding team, to build out the solutions we see are necessary to help shippers really actually protect their freight. There's a lot that brokers can do, and the reality is everything we do, there are still ways to get around that. And the technology keeps going up, but you hear it out all the time, the problem keeps getting bigger. And so we're trying to take the fight directly to the last line of defense. And here at OnSite, we really do consider the freight situation when it comes to fraud as a national emergency. It's how big now? Like, I think I saw the last number was like $15 to $30 billion industry as far as fraud's concerned, and that to me is a pretty insane number to allow to continue to happen. And I'm really glad to see the market reacting the way it is. And it's really been I guess it's nice to know that the market thinks what's needed is what we were already trying to build. When we came down to the actual idea of what we wanted OnSite to be, that shipper facing product that allows them to double check everything at the door. And we took that from our experience losing a load and having it stolen. And it was almost like all of the stars aligned in a weird way, where the day we decided, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to put our mind to it, we're going to learn things that, probably a lot of brokers aren't really hip to. We're going to really dive into the fraud situation, understand it at a granular level. We moved in and started just seeing article after article talking and calling for basically what we were already building. And so, and then of course that led to our conversation with you, John, which, highly valuable. I mean, you're so knowledgeable in everything you're doing, and just meeting Kate here, I'm sure you're just as knowledgeable as John when it comes to this stuff, and I'm looking really forward to having those deeper level conversations with you about it too. But yeah, at the end of the day, our goal is freight fraud and putting a stop to it, because we're tired of seeing it happen and being victims of that situation, and having it victimize our customer. We're done with it. We're not putting up with it anymore. We're going to start taking actions to stop it.
So, what is the game plan for how things are going? I mean, you guys aren't even officially up and running, but you do have some kind of code already set up to start doing this stuff. What's the plan for you guys?
Yeah, right now we're working with some early shippers out here in Kansas City. That's where most of our founders are at here in KC, visiting their physical locations, because every shipper is different. This obviously the problem of freight fraud. There's so much digital space activity going on, and it's never going to go away. We're going to always need that level of technology to keep improving, obviously to stay ahead of the scammers and all the bad actors out there. But what I think is truly missing is marrying up what's happening in the digital space. You're onboarding a carrier. That's great. You're vetting the carrier prior to them, getting to the shipper. But what if you're booking a load 2-3 days out, even a day out? Like, there's so much time and lag time in between, that longer that lag time is, the more opportunity there is for nefarious stuff to happen prior to that truck getting to the shipper. And I think one of the biggest problems is reaction time and visibility. So obviously our platform is going to be able to connect. It's starting at shipper standalone product. So obviously if you're a broker and you're watching this, the broker space and connection to this product will be shortly after. But to start, we need the shippers to give them an easy, simple way to vet carriers as well, and including tons of other products. They need to be doing that prior to, no doubt about it. But I think there's another level of physically being there, hence the name site. But the problem too is shippers are, of course everyone has an interest in stopping freight fraud, but at the end of the day, I think we can all attest to it too. We have an 8 to 5 job where we're working. We're trying to get, from the shipper's perspective, they're trying to get loads out. They're trying to get POs and, coordinating with dock workers. So really, they would love to solve it too, I bet. But there's just so much stuff happening that we've got to be able to give them a simple solution. So obviously that's what we're still working on. There's always going to be tweaks to it, but that's really where it starts, is at the shipper first. And I think there was even an article shared by, it was either Dale or by you, John, but it was the big FedEx situation where they didn't even properly document and identify who came in our facility. That's going to be a big point for us too with shippers is, maybe you have a good check-in process. I don't know. I own a trucking company too. And for the last 9 months since we've been working on this, I always kept tabs with my 2 drivers and saying, hey, what's the check-in process look like when you're pulling up to these docks? And they're like, 95% of them are pen and paper. And I'm like, so now that's a start. You're at least documenting who they say they are, right? But then there's that whole documenting and verifying. But then how well are you doing that and tracking that within your organization to share that information? Is there a claim that pops up? Do you need to get law enforcement involved? So really I don't know if pivotability is really a word or not, but the ability to pivot when you have that information, it's got to be stored, centralized, easy to read, and easy to send to, like I said, law enforcement, claims, your broker. I think that the biggest key to this whole ecosystem is building that visual ecosystem, and there's going to be different pieces viable to different parties, but it all starts at the shipper level, in my opinion. And we need to start marrying the physical, what's going on, connecting it to the digital space, but then also giving the tools for reaction time and communication. So right now we obviously have our website, verifyinsite.com, and then a check-in system load management, and some vetting. So, and we're going to be tweaking around that here as we go. So,
that's something that really amazes me a lot. I don't know how many times I've said the warehouse is the last line of defense, because that's when the scammers can physically get control of the cargo. And I don't know if it's that warehouses have allowed it to fall on deaf ears, or if there just isn't an appetite on their end to fix it. And I'm hoping that the more warehouses realize they're actually liable for this, then the more are going to want to jump in and get involved in a solution such as this, so that they don't have to worry about these issues moving forward. Man, I'll tell you, my phone is blowing up today. It's Monday. God, I hate
Important
Mondays.
guy, John.
No, it got too many things going on at one time.
Yeah.
And apparently, my dog agrees. There's too much going on at one time. You're overstimulated too. Seriously though, I love the concept of what you guys are putting together. And if there's any way to identify these carriers as they show up as proof that they're the right people, then we're already halfway there. Now, some carriers have mentioned concerns about privacy. Some of the facial recognition options that exist, they're worried about their details being able to be hacked or anything like that. Do you have safeguards in place as you're collecting data on drivers coming in to pick up loads and whatnot, that you're able to help protect privacy issues?
Errick's a good. I wish we have two developers as well, so I wish they were here to properly answer all that, because they are. This is a constant topic when we do our group meetings. We have 5 co-founders, by the way, so us 2 plus another 3. But Errick, I don't know if you want to speak around that on the security side and maybe the CDLs and stuff like that.
Yeah, certainly. So to put it into, or to kind of put the worry down, the 2 developers we have, they're very security focused. The lead dev, he has enterprise experience, and the founding dev, he helped out with the original concept of on-site, and helped us get that first initial demo out the door for us. And so,
and he's built a system. Sorry to interrupt. He's built a system at other big box brokerages that are, I believe, still in existence today. So they know their stuff. They're in the freight space too, and that's the thing. All 5 of our co-founders are in the freight space, which I think helps us from we're always going to be able to move and react quickly to the market. But sorry, Errick. Sorry to interrupt.
No, that was really great to bring up. So just to understand, we're all a part of the community already. We've been in trucking. I personally have been in the industry for a little over, I think, 11 years now, since 2013. So I don't know, you do the math, but yeah. So when it comes to security, I wouldn't think that is something that we aren't taking extremely seriously. And to rephrase it, we're taking security of data very, very, very seriously. And that is because, the reality is, when you're fighting fraud, you have to be on your toes, because the bad actors are bad actors, and bad actors act bad. And so, you have to be ready for whatever they're going to throw at you. And that includes being hacked. And so, our team's ready for whatever challenges roll out our way, but we are taking security of the data to be a paramount part of the build out of this product.
And that's a lot of stuff we talked about at the beginning too, was as we were sourcing through this idea, as I was making calls to shippers, kind of explaining the concept, talking to the drivers who I built relationships with. And that was probably the main pushback. They're like, well, I'll do whatever it needs to do at a shipper, of course, because it's, my load, I'm getting paid, I got to go. Obviously, some of them are like, well, I'm just a little bit weary about, checks and stuff like that. So I know nothing about developing code or anything like that. So I wish they were on here, but they'll correct me, I'm sure, once they watch this. But essentially being able to store the data where it's more of just you're verifying in that moment. And then some of the data can be parsed and doesn't have to be stored in, let's call it spot A versus spot B. So this topic is probably every week on our weekly calls. And I wish we had our developers here to chat about it more. But if I can talk about their background just a little bit, we've got like I said, Errick, over a decade of experience, data analysts, brokerage coverage, me with being a broker, trucking, and now, working more on the ground level, let's say with shippers. Two of our developers, one's been factoring, engineering, LTL systems that he's built. And then another co-founder out in North Carolina, he's a logistics manager in the military, brings another great aspect to the team. So I'm loving where things are going. And obviously we're all doing it part-time as of right now, since we're all working our jobs and doing our thing, but hope to be pushing full-time this year, by the end of this year, as we work through these beta customers and really get the good feedback that we need, because it's conceptual now as our early stages, but once we actually get in there and start figuring out what people like, what they don't like, it's going to be really exciting to look forward to those changes. So.
Yeah, most people are familiar with my background in warehousing. I've probably spent, I would say, about 8 years of my post-military time running warehouses. And we used to go through extensive security procedures when we were running with foreign trade zones, or FTZs, as many logisticians refer to them. Foreign trade zones, for those who don't understand, it's basically additional space for Homeland Security and Customs when they've got cargo they need to process, or they're waiting on tariff payment or whatever, and they look for participating warehouses under the FTZ program to hold that kind of in trust. So you have to be bonded and all this other stuff, and have that part of your warehouse segregated from the general public. But those rules, following those rules, the way they check in and whatnot, that has always been how, as a warehouse manager, I was able to avoid cargoes from getting stolen. Cargoes always got on the right truck, the right driver, at the right time. All of our information went to the brokers every single day. We had copies of everybody's driver's licenses every day. I mean, it was a process. And for my clerks, it was annoying. I get that. But at the end of the day, everything went flawlessly. And that's one of the dreams and hopes I have for on-site.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, really, during our conversation with John, that was actually kind of a bigger topic, talking about your extensive knowledge when it comes to the shipper side. And yeah, I mean, there was definitely a lot of what's a good word for their similarities between the processes that the FTZ would advise taking, and also what we're attempting to try and build out. So hopefully, or I guess not hopefully, but the eventual goal is to make that, I guess, a little bit more accessible to the average shipper. So,
well, streamlining that process would definitely be in everyone's best interest. Now, mind you, last time I've done this was, heck, 7 years ago. So, I mean, I know some time has passed, and tech does continue to improve, but still no one has cracked this nut as to how the heck to stop the scamming that's going on. So what about this load? What was it that happened here that really got you guys together, got you thinking about this? What happened?
Yeah. So I was actually, as I talked about, I was like, I want to come back to this. So perfect timing. So when it happened, we used all our vetting systems at my brokerage that we thought was great. I mean, it showed they were like a Northern Cali to Southern Cali back and forth carrier, like Ma and Pa 1-2 trucks, 0 freight guard reports, 0 issues on really any of our vetting sources that we did, like 31 something inspections, because obviously if they're going the same route, they're getting inspected all the time. The only reason we really knew what was happening is because we did use tracking, and then we noticed over the weekend it was a little not making sense, let's say. And we called for delivery update on Monday morning. The lady claimed to not know who we were or what was going on. So obviously our ears went, they're pricked up. So we're like, okay, what the heck is happening? Obviously, when you're talking about a full, truckload of electronics, that's, high value stuff. So in the time, I remember as a broker, I was like, this sucks that I have to let my customer know potentially about fraud or a stolen load. But I immediately emailed the shipping location. So the shipping managers on the email chain, all my customers, transportation planners. I was like, hey guys, this sucks, but I believe this is a stolen load. If you have cameras, please go ahead and check them. Like, let's get on this. It picked up on a Friday, so it would have been Monday. So only a few days had passed. Kind of the crappy part about this, but where we saw holes in the response time is it was nearly 8 months until there was actually a police report or inspection actually like done. Now, again, I don't know if that was due to my customers' delay or incompetence on gathering everything, or police are just slow at processing, but it took that long. And I did everything, of course, sending all the information I had, tracking phone numbers, all that. But it's just weird that we saw a perfectly good carrier. Didn't seem, I'm able to source out. I mean, if you've been in the industry or broker, you can kind of sniff out a double broker potentially after the fact, but the emails all matched. There was nothing weird about it whatsoever. So I have no idea how they still pull it off. I mean, whether they're just a good carrier and they're like, today's the day to go rogue. I don't know. But from that situation, that's kind of our idea too with law enforcement is if we could have, if everything would have been stored right there at the pickup, kind of like the FTZ type deal, but in a digital format, then when we know something's going wrong, we can start connecting those fraud alert pieces with the shipper, with law enforcement. Doesn't need to take that long to file a police report or get all the information. We've got maybe images, pictures with it, carrier name, certain critical data points about the CDL, and just boom, at least we can now start improving our reaction time. So that was basically the kind of the disappointing part was like, man, we're just sitting here having to tell our customer about this crappy scenario. And obviously if you talk about security cameras too, I don't know on how long they store that data and stuff like that. So I know image quality might not be great. So yeah, once again, that's why we think at the beginning, at the starting point, because obviously that's where it starts, and then it just the river, the channels of potential fraud just flow out from there, right? So that's essentially.
I have seen, I don't know how many different fraud cases that I've worked that resulted in either double brokered load or stolen load, and frankly, the warehouse was in every position in the world to stop it. Problem is that the warehouse did not take any responsibility whatsoever in dealing with that. Was that also your experience when you had your freight stolen? The warehouse just said, not our problem?
Well, that was the thing. Like there was kind of like communication, but it was very like, it wasn't too much pointing fingers. I don't know how the internal conversations went with the customer. One of their locations went, like the main headquarters in that plant. I don't actually know how that went. I do know that this totally blanked my mind here. Something you just said, totally, Eric, if you're thinking of it, I know.
It's Monday.
I know.
It's Monday. The curse is passed on to you guys. It's Monday.
Something you had said, there was a word that you had said that was going to give me a thought, but anyways, it'll come back to me. Eric, yeah, any more fun facts about that case that you remember?
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of compound on what you were already saying, yeah, it's just like we obviously didn't have a whole bunch of the internals, but it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of finger pointing on our side or anything like that, or between us and the customer and shipper and us. Like it was just more of like a wow, there's a whole load gone now, and it's not a cheap one. So
I know what I was going to say now before I
Yeah.
lose it. So I think what you're getting to, John, and I think this may come up more, is definitely as we grow, we're going to talk to shipping locations, and I've came across this. If they don't pay for the freight, they do think that like, well, we don't have any liability with this situation. I'm like, you are the ones physically loading the truck though, right? And I think what we're seeing more and more with cases, lawsuits and stuff like that, I mean, if the brokers either go out of business because the lawsuit's too big, or the carriers of one truck company, eventually they're going to push back, even if you don't pay for the freight. I think that's a lot of conversations I'm having with shippers lately is they think they're totally scot-free because they don't pay for or arrange the freight. I'm like, but you are physically loading the freight, right? And I think the attitude of, well, my broker does it for me, he vets the carriers. Well, the problem's going up, isn't it? Like the problem's rising, technology's rising. If we can just offer them a simple tool, you can start to, because the conversations I'm festering with shippers is improve your communications with your brokers. And there's eventually going to be a tool where we'll be able to connect and link, like I said, broker to shipper in real time in sort of a messaging platform that they can communicate about issues or anyone who needs to be involved. So I think that's one thing too, is that a little bit of pushback. It's like, oh, I don't handle the freight. I was like, oh, well, do you load the freight though? Yeah, we do. We load. Okay. Well, I'm pretty sure there's some liability there. So even if you don't pay for it.
Well, you have, they're in physical possession. The brokers are never in physical possession of the cargo. So really, they're the ones who have no, how do I put this, liability, if you want to use that term. However, all the fun still falls on the broker at the end of the day, trying to protect their customer, trying to protect that relationship, and they're the ones who end up footing the bill quite often in these types of cases. Even if the carrier it doesn't, because carriers kind of stuck with what's the insurance company going to say. The insurance company says the carrier has no liability because the carrier did exactly what they were contracted to do. Forget the fact it was a fake broker that contracted them. They did what they were supposed to do. Why the heck did they have to worry about paying it? And then it falls into the shipper's lap, by extension, the broker. And that's one of the things that I think really is a big problem in this industry. Brokers jump in to try to service the need of their customers, which is admirable.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's not required unless they had it built into their contracts with the shipper. These kinds of situations really need to stay between the shipper and the carrier because they're the ones in physical contact with the cargo. But that does include their 3PLs and warehouses because, guys, you did load the truck. You had the information. You didn't pay attention. You loaded the wrong damn truck. What do you mean? You're not liable.
And my question too is, as it starts building, it's like, are these shippers or people that have brokers? How many customers do you think call their brokers and go, or really know, hey, how are you vetting your carriers? Like, do they maybe just see everyone as the same? Well, it's broker number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Or do these customers, these shippers really know the difference between the different brokerages? And I don't think they do necessarily. I think they're just trying to move their freight. Obviously, they're focusing on service and price. Obviously, you've got your customers that are always going to go low. But at the same time, even if they want high service, how educated are these shippers on really, like, what are the tools you're using? I know I've never gotten a call from any of my shipping locations, even after the stolen load, of like, hey, what tools are you specifically using? And I think our platform will eventually help shippers and customers be able to de-risk their broker relationships. Once we kind of have the tool that connects brokers to shippers, I think they'll be able to kind of see, hey, this person keeps having a double brokered situation. Now, if it gets delivered, the POD is paid, everyone's fine. Obviously, those are the thank God it delivered no issue type loads. But now we hope the platform will bring visibility to, this was loaded on this truck and it showed up at the receiver with this truck. What happened here? And start to maybe give our shippers or customers, maybe a fraud report, like a monthly report of, hey, broker number 1, you're having a lot of issues with broker number 2, and so on. So those are the type of the data plays that we see in the future, maybe being a staple where we are a reliable spot, like a freight validator or a partnership or a carrier 411, where there's actually some data, but also tied back to a physical reference point. Like, hey, carrier ABC trucking company has actually physically been, and it's been documented they were at that physical location. So that's a little bit of the data play that we hope to build as our ecosystem grows. So
a lot of shippers don't know. Shippers, in my experience, because I was one, they don't have the knowledge of anything fraud related. Like it's an absent thing. Like that's not even a thought. They don't know that that's a thing, and nobody ever tells them. They're just over there doing their job and putting the stuff on the truck and sending it away, and that's it. They don't know this stuff, and that's a lot of the problem. If they did, there would be a lot more desire to mitigate the fraud.
Yeah, we've been talking about, we've got to be able to create an easy on-ramp for shippers. Not only become a fraud tool that overall will help the industry, will help everyone connected, but not a shipper's not going to sign up with us like, I just want to have this altruistic philosophy of stopping freight. Let's go, right? They're not just going to pay money just because maybe it'll help the industry. They need some real business tangible efficiency tools as well, is what we're definitely going to provide. But it's all going to start with the center point of documenting, verifying, and being a pillar of fraud prevention. And then from that, we're going to build out different business efficiency tools. To your point, Kate, yeah, we've in a lot of this, that's kind of the fight, is like educating shippers, have those convos about liability. You can't beat them in the face with like, you need to, you got to obviously give them a little bit to buy in with, and like, helping them just know the value. I think anyone makes a decision, not necessarily on price, but they do it on value. Show me the value of something, and sweet, then we can talk price. So
you have to hope that they even care.
Yeah. And it may be a difficult spot when you're talking to the actual shipping manager, but you need to talk to someone who's not there. And then it's a difference of the end buyer of on-site versus the end user. And so there's
something like the plant manager or something like that, not just the shipping manager, because they're also just some random person that got promoted to fill out paperwork and put shit on a truck. Like, they don't care. But
oh, John,
gee, thanks.
Like,
thanks.
I was in the same situation, so I don't want to
you guys
hear
are
it.
Different, okay? You guys are head above the rest. But yeah, no, that's going to be a lot of the battle that I think that's why we're in the position we're in, kind of that history that you gave, John, kind of like after, when COVID happened, a lot of the influx of double brokering, and everyone was working at home, and there was so much more opportunity for, fraud to enter this space. We got to get back in there, get on the ground level, visit shippers, because a lot of it's going to be kind of giving them an on-site guidelines or best practices is, hey, this is what we recommend, standard operating procedure of how we best recommend to use this. So you can have the data that you need, you can send it to the right people. At the same time, though, it's got to be practical, and it's got to be where it's not interrupting their workflow and their day-to-day so much that, like you said, it's so time consuming to do, 700 steps. So we think we have a pretty good plan for that, to make it simple and easy to use. So,
I wonder if you could, if you were to sort of advertise that, or say, hey, here's what could happen if you don't pay attention, or if you don't do something about it, the product that you sell. So I guess, for example, when I was in shipping, it was exhaust hoses for Peterbilts and Kenworths, and those things are expensive. And we would ship an entire dry van full of like Volvo hoses that takes a week to make. So you're out, if that gets lost, you're out all the revenue for those hoses, and you have to pay your employees an extra, week to do the same job, and the materials for it. I mean, it's ridiculous. I wonder, I don't know, that would be like a good approach, I guess. I would see that and be like, wow, okay.
You couldn't be more right. Like, the cost of fraud doesn't just stop at the load being stolen. That's I think that's why the numbers drastically going up, is when you do the cost analysis on what that really looks like. A $200,000 load could actually be closer to $1 million worth of loss, due to you might be reimbursed through a claim on the manufacturing cost of the product, but in the end, think of all the hours spent by the claims professionals that are dealing with it, the logistics professionals that are transferring information back and forth between different parties, waiting on law enforcement. So law enforcement is being dragged out, into, at least from what I can tell, what seems to be a pretty severe lack of information to even go off of. And it's something that I've recently read from Freight Waves is they had an article about a stolen load of cell phones with one of their shippers, and I think it was like $11.5 million worth of cell phones just gone. So yeah, I mean, like hearing that number, like, Oof, big oof. But yeah, I mean, like it seems pretty clear that there isn't a direct um, lawsuit specifically that makes it to where shippers are protected. It seems like when it really boils down legally, what protects shippers most of the time is what John alluded to earlier, which is that broker relationship, where brokers are willing to take the hit to keep the freight. And so, but I think it was something along the lines of the U.S. Supreme Court had recently declined to even give a ruling on whether or not who is really liable in the case of cargo theft like that. And so, the shippers definitely aren't protected, and they really need to. We need to do our best to educate them as we grow, to get them to a point where they understand that the game really does end with them. If that freight leaves your dock and it's on a fraudulent driver's truck, you may never see it again. Your customer may not get the critical supplies that they need from your warehouse. So really it boils down to not only protecting yourself from that situation, but also protecting, in the 3PL case, protecting your customer's freight. That could separate you from different 3PLs that don't use on site, or some method of making sure that the people that are showing up and taking the freight are who they say they are. And if they and once we've concluded that they are who they say they are, if they steal the freight, then we at least have a way to take the fight to that person. Whereas right now, at least for most shippers, I would go out on a limb and say it seems like most shippers don't have any kind of way to do that. And either that be lack of trying, lack of interest, or lack of knowledge. The reality is it's a big problem, and a lot of shippers aren't taking the proper and necessary steps to protect freight. So they're a part of this game whether they want to be or not.
I was a member of the Savannah Traffic Club for 15 years when I first moved to Savannah. And we talked a lot about different transportation issues during that time frame, but never once was there a discussion about security. So it's kind of Kate pointed out, do they really care? It becomes the big question all the way around. And I question how much they actually care. Again, I've written, I don't know how many articles on the topic, and I get very few responses on those articles. Either they're not reading them, they're not seeing them, whatever. Maybe I need to redo it to fit an algorithm. I don't know. But somehow the word's got to get out. I think traffic clubs are a great place to start. And I know the Freight Fraud Task Force is going to be reaching out to different professional organizations in major metropolitan areas as we're trying to get good information out about different events that are going on. And we want to make sure that people get the right information, the right education all the way around. And that seems to be a direction you guys are headed in with your platform. And I think it's fantastic. It's nice to see other people stepping up to the plate to try to stop this at the source. We've said it over and over again. The warehouses are the last line of defense. Physically, they're also the front line because they're the ones who are sitting on the cargo. It's really great as a broker to have all these tools and data to be able to try to determine whether or not a carrier is worthy. But the tools can be spoofed. Phone numbers don't mean anything anymore. I mean, how many times do we see carriers getting their safer platform hijacked by these scammers because they can get their hands on the PIN numbers? Yeah. I mean, it blows people's minds when I start talking about the scope of the problem that exists. And this right here, and to me, this is no exaggeration. For all those who are listening, this is not an exaggeration. This can be a silver bullet that can stop a good 95% plus of the fraud that's out there in this industry. I can't verify the number you quoted, Eric. What was that? 20 to 30 billion?
I think it was 15 to 30 is last I read.
Is that globally or U.S.?
U.S., I think, domestic, if I remember correctly.
That's
it's a freight. Awesome. I remember in 2023, FreightWaves cited 500 to 700 million, and I heard a statistic of an increase of 600% for 2024. So at whatever number, it's exponential, and that's the key. Why more people aren't stepping up in this environment is beyond me. So kudos to you guys for coming up with a platform that has the promise to do something spectacular for this industry.
I think Tim Cook, or was it Steve Jobs? Maybe Steve Jobs had said it at the time when he was developing the iPhone, and they were asking about market research. You know, a lot of people might know the quote. He's like, you know, people don't know what they want until they know what they can have. It can kind of be that scenario. It's like everyone's just trying to move about their day, get a paycheck, grow their company, grow their client base. There's so many moving parts that it's like, yeah, I think everyone in the back of their mind is like, this problem sucks, but until we give the market something more tangible, shareable, easily tracked. And I think Dale has talked about it a lot on his podcast. It was like people coming together and viewing each other as partners, which is why as we grow, I think our sector can be at the warehouse level, and a lot of these digital spaces that are, you know, fighting freight fraud will be great partnerships for us to kind of make that complete, you know, fill that last, you know, on the wheel, so to speak. But yeah, it's and it'll just help everyone. So I think drivers will eventually be excited because when we talk about double brokering, introducing some of our tech to be able to make sure that, you know, that broker doesn't send the money to the wrong broker first. I know, John, you had talked about it on, you know, the numbers. What is it? 49 CRF, whatever the double paying thing, the double payment act, whatever. There's 700.
49 CFR 377.
Say that 7 times fast. So yeah, there's going to be other people in the supply chain that'll see value in it, not just the shipper, but obviously that is the challenge, right? It's educating them, having them recognize why it's valuable to have some of this data, and give them a feasible way to do it. Or like I said, it's not super time consuming to slow down their operations throughout the day. So.
And Errick, thank you very much for dropping the statistic from the National Insurance Crime Bureau indicating that cargo theft amounts are running at $15 to $30 billion a year. So there's the citation for all you guys out there who are sitting there saying, "Prove it." Okay, there you go, prove it. So thank you very much, Errick.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
So what is the next step for you guys? I mean, you're still in your infancy. You have a concept. What's the next step?
Gosh, I mean, like immediately is obviously our first step with shippers, but I think the most exciting part is connecting brokers, honestly, because having been a broker myself, obviously I have a way different role now, owning a trucking company and then now building on site. I think that's where you're getting, if you want to requalify your question and make sure I don't answer the wrong question. But I'm most excited about once we bring on brokers to actually connecting them to have a deeper relationship when it comes to their freight and giving them more tools to interact with their shipper, making themselves more marketable too. So I'm most excited about that. We've built some demo mock-ups of our platform for connecting shippers with brokers and some of this. Some of our devs, it's like I said, not in production, not fully working on it because we're still establishing the shipper standalone tool. But if that's what you mean, the next step, that's what I'm most excited about once we get to that. That's a few months away, but that's what I'm most excited about in terms of next steps. So I don't know if I answered that right for you. Or if
okay, so you're beta testing with shippers now to make sure that your concept is sound, and you're now seeking brokers to get into it, to try to start working on integrations and stuff like that. To get them
or 1A shippers, 1B, like right after that. So again, it's still a few months away, but we are going to start talking to brokerages and maybe doing a waiting list, maybe even doing some mock demos to at least show them conceptually of how that's going to interact with their shipper. That's what I'm most excited about, just because, and specifically double brokering. Of course, there'll be other fraud, maybe even at the driver level that we can determine, but double brokering's really excited to tackle and eliminate that from that angle. But like I said, that's a little bit of ways. So
having seen this problem from all different aspects, I did warehousing, broker, dispatch, driver. I've been at every angle of this ball of wax that you could be. And one of the things that really that I question a lot is the integration piece. There are so many different tools out there, whether it's a shipper's TMS or a broker's TMS. integration, I think, is going to be the biggest challenge I think you guys are going to be facing. And is that something you guys are addressing? That
Uh,
integration piece?
Let me think about how to answer this properly because I don't want to give too much away yet. It's still
Let's just
very
answer
much in
it here.
Be
development.
very general. Be very
Yeah,
general.
so
We don't want you to give away how you do it.
yeah, so I know one of the devs would kill me. Yeah, a separate product from the shipper's standing point, at least from the brokers. At least that's where this initial tools start from. We are actually building out a tool to help kind of alleviate a lot of the integration pains that companies do face when it comes to switching between different systems. Because I mean, as a broker, I can't tell you how many tabs I have to have open during the day to be able to react as quickly as I do to, new information. And I mean, it's at least over 8 tabs open at all times. And so,
Those are rookie
transferring.
numbers. Get that up.
Yeah, get that up. So
I'm looking across my browser right now, and I've got 19.
Jeez, yeah. Yeah, so you feel the pain, and at least on its onset, the brokers will probably have first access to the tool we're working on that we see kind of alleviating that issue between a lot of the lack of integration that the industry does experience. Because I mean, really at the end of the day, like I kind of look at on site and our real mission, not just fraud, right, but are kind of like an extended mission, at least for me, like in my own heart, is we're going to fill a lot of the holes and cracks we see, and we're going to be offering additional products to help alleviate a lot of the holes we see outside of just combating fraud. And so really we're in it for the big win where everybody wins with us, right? We want to see the industry do better than it's currently at. It's kind of like the idea of showing up somewhere and before you leaving, making it a better place than how you found it. And so that's really, at least that's a core tenet of mine. It's like, I've been in the industry for so long. It's given me a lot of professional skills that I do have and am able to use these days. And I want to give something back. And it's helped me grow as a person, not just professionally, but also personally with the people I've met. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm ready to lock arms with people who want to lock arms and tackle this thing together. As far as the integration thing, yeah, that's probably one of the other tools I'm really, really excited about right now. Yeah, like Alex said, first focus 100% needs to be the shippers. We need to get them in the game, playing with everybody else and on the same page.
Because I know if I got a call from my shipper, like, hey, I'm using this thing called On-Site, I'd be like, sweet, show me. This sounds awesome. You know what I mean? So I think from the, and that's to my other point too, because I know there's probably less shippers on listening to your podcast. Maybe I'm wrong, but more brokers and carriers. So if you have a shipper that maybe is having this issue and you want to get them on board or have them be a beta customer, obviously reach out to us and we can kind of do a demo with you one-on-one and kind of show you exactly how this would operate with your customer. Because obviously there's a lot of nuance to it and setting them up and getting them educated in the processes, et cetera. So that's the stage we're in. Anyone that wants to, because I think channel sales through brokerages and giving them kickback too, we're thinking about offering brokers credits if we give a shippers and vice versa. When shippers go, well, I use 5 brokers, I want my brokers using this too, giving the shipper a kickback too for connecting us with their broker and making that process work. So kind of going dual way. Because like I said, shippers 1A, and then brokerage right after that point, because they're going to be working in tandem anyways. Unless they're a shipper that's 100% carrier direct, then obviously we're going to have a package for them too. So yeah.
Yeah, like I said before, what you guys are developing to me is super exciting and can be, I think, a very large scale solution. And I think it's going to be easy to get the industry to get behind you in what it is that you're trying to do. Because again, the promise is so great. It's all about execution at this point. How cumbersome is it going to be for a warehouse? How cumbersome is it going to be at the broker level? And of course, how cumbersome is it going to be for the driver? A lot of drivers out there are not tech savvy. You know, even the facial recognition can be an issue for some drivers. So, you know, there's going to be some learning curves along the way. I think we
Growing
all
pains,
have to.
yeah.
But, you know, we'll get through it. We always do. And I mean, heck, we finally got through the whole ELD thing. It took us years.
Yep.
Yeah, most of us are online with the ELDs. I know this is a slow process trying to get all this information out there and trying to get these guys on board and to go through your testing. But I know I'm going to be watching you guys very closely over the coming months to see how you guys develop. And as you get closer and closer to that launch point, I'd love to bring you guys back to talk about what kind of successes you have, what kind of problems you might still be encountering, and what it is that needs to be done to make this a great program. Guys, I can't thank you enough for coming out. This sounds fantastic.
It's great.
Yeah, I'm excited. One last quick plug for anybody looking to connect with us. If you go to Verify On-Site, again, site is SIGHT, verifyonsite.com. If you scroll to the very bottom of our webpage, there's a contact form. If you fill that out and hit send, come straight to all the founders. We'll schedule a meeting with you guys and talk about more in depth if you're a shipper, and you know, potentially that on the broker side when that's starting to kind of shift into our focus. So
nice looking website.
Okay.
I'm looking at it right now.
Appreciate it.
yeah, thank you.
I did edit the video. I didn't film those paid clips, but I did edit it. So got a little video editing in my life. So
I'll have to reach out to you for editing tips.
Yeah.
Doing that in the coming weeks. Any other last minute plugs that you want to make here as we start winding down?
Gosh, no, I think Eric covered it. Again, this was great to just talk to other people about it that aren't our internal founders and or shippers, other people with outside perspectives. And if anyone wants to reach out with us and just collab, chat, talk about general topics, whatever. So this has been awesome.
We're going to be looking to chat you guys up as much as possible, especially as incidents come up. I get a lot of brokers who call me on a regular basis talking about things that they've experienced. And I'm going to try to steer them in your direction to see if there's something that you guys can do to help them, even in your early stages here. So that is fantastic. Glad to have you guys here. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang with us.
Thanks for having us.
Kate, you got any last thoughts before we wrap this up?
Nope. Happy Monday. It's gonna be all right.
Oh, I hate Mondays. But Mondays do tend to get a little bit better when you understand what the heck you are actually getting when we're talking about cost per mile. You're best off tracking your cost per mile with AccuBid Pro.
Do you know your cost per mile? Have you been hitting your profit margins? Do you struggle with bidding in a way that is both profitable and competitive? Would it be worth it to have all this information right in front of you? By calculating your cost per mile, AccuBid Pro helps you stay profitable in an industry still struggling to recover. In order to calculate your cost per mile, AccuBid Pro asks you questions about your business expenses. Our goal is to help you understand what you need to keep operating in order to keep up with the game and maintain your business. Enter your origin and destination, and we show you what you should bid based on your personal cost per mile in order to be profitable, even including a more detailed breakdown of each bid. Download the app today and get your 30-day free trial of AccuBid Pro, available on the App Store and Google Play. Bid smarter, bid faster, bid better with AccuBid Pro.
As we go to wrap up this Monday, and most of you guys are probably getting back to work after your lunch, I know I'm about to go and hit the boards trying to find loads for tomorrow. However, we will always be here Mondays, 1 p.m. Central Time. Please make sure you check us out, subscribe and like on your favorite social media channel, wherever you find us. You can also get a hold of Kate and myself if you have any issues. Get Kate at kprice@stopthescampodcast.com, or myself, the Double Broker Bounty Hunter, at jcantera@stopthescampodcast.com. It's going to be an interesting week for those of you who are actually going to Matt's. I'll be looking forward to seeing you guys at the Freight Ninja booth. Please come on out and say hi, and stay safe as you're making your way out there. But whatever you do, don't let scammers take you for a ride. We'll see you guys next week.